So since it's 8 p.m., I will be fair to everybody who joined on time. I'm happy to have you all here. For the ones that I still did not meet, I'm Caesar. I tried to get everybody together through this meetup group on some personal activities around Zurich or in Switzerland, some other places. And we're starting to get some more activities in our group. And Daniel was very kind to offer to discuss a bit about post-processing. But there are some other things that will come, and most of you either already signed up or just asked to sign up for the newsletter, in which tomorrow I will send some of the new activities. I was waiting for this meeting to announce some of them. But this one with Daniel tonight is a bit of a kickoff of the new activities that we have, some of them online, some other around Switzerland that we're going to meet to photograph, to learn, whatever. And tonight, Daniel is going to share with us a little bit about post-processing, and he's going to show his way to do it. I am sure that whenever we talk about post-processing, there are a dozen different ways in which you can do exactly the same thing. And Daniel is going to show his way. It doesn't mean it's the right way, the only way, it's the way he does it, and his results are amazing. He will share some of his contacts, and you will have the chance to see some of his work. And he and Anna Hosa, his wife, they are not only great people, but they are amazing photographers, and they do a lot of very nice work. And I do invite you all to share, to see the images that they share on their social accounts. We will share some material with you guys afterwards, including the files that Daniel is going to work on, so you can work on them yourselves and experiment with the concepts and the tools that Daniel is going to show. And also his contacts, I'm going to send them to all of you afterwards. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat. I will be monitoring the chat while Daniel is going to present the post-processing. And please go ahead, ask whatever you want. If we can answer, we will. If not, then we can try to hook up later and see if we can develop a bit more of the concept. As I said, this is not an in-depth way to or a course on editing or post-processing. If you are interested on that, then let's chat, because later on we're going to have some activities that are more geared towards really exploring the tools and learning. But this one is more about how Daniel does it and how amazing you can make some photos that were already good. So without going too much further, I'm going to send it to Daniel. And again, thank you, Daniel, for sharing with us a little bit of your way to do the post-processing. And from now on, you have the full power. Go for it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Cesar, for the introduction. So I then try to share now my screen. Okay, this is can you share host on there. So now guys. Now you should actually see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So thanks a lot for the introduction, Cesar, and thanks for hosting and this event and going through the whole thing of inviting and sending people the links. It's always a lot of work as well on the back end for this part of this event. So as Cesar already mentioned, I'm just going to show you guys how I would actually do some post-processing of my images. It's really not a course how you use Lightroom or Capture One. I'm using both tools because I'm aware about the fact that only a few of you might use Capture One, which is actually my main post-processing tool. And it's more about the situation I'm experiencing quite often, especially in the walks. I hear people say, well, I shoot images and then they start just make cool images and then they post them as they are out of cam, as a lot of people say. And that's something I think they're just missing a lot, because with a little tweaking in post-processing, they could do much, much more with these already good images. So this is something I really want not to miss, that people really get the idea what you can do with post-processing and what the power of this is. So let's continue. So just to give you a little glimpse what we do. So when I talk about we, it's always Anna Rosa, my wife, and myself. We work always together, so we assist each other. And here you see our page on the left-hand side on Behance. This is a part of Adobe's portfolio, which we use mainly to post our work. And on the right-hand side, you see Instagram, which, however, I'm not very good in updating Instagram. I do this maybe once or two in a quarter. So Behance is much more current, as you see here already. Then how we shoot on location. I mean, we shoot quite a lot of outdoors, and outdoors, indoors, as you see here, left-hand side in the bar. Then in this field with the apple trees here in Thurgau. However, we have our own studio in Eschlikon in the Thurgau, where we have a lot of space for our creativity. And as you see here, we just built this massive wooden box, and we decorate it in different ways, so that we can I can do what I like to create. Now, coming to the agenda. So I'm doing a short introduction in the photography basics. I know for a lot of you guys, I know a lot of people here in the call already, you are professionals shooting many, many years more than I do. I do this now for 7-8 years. However, I don't want to miss some basic concepts, because I'm really saying the better the images you get into post, the better is what you get out of post. So this is something I try to convey already, is that the more you think about post processing during the shoot, the more you get out of the shoot later on. Do you see the ones who want to in the waiting room as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I just got a message that two are waiting. Okay, I guess okay, they care about that. So then I have some recommendations.
When you went as a host, I cannot make them in anymore.
Ah, okay, then
I think I can do it on my end here, Daniel. You are
okay.
still presenting, and I am host again.
So I just let them in. Good. So, and as I'm here in the top right corner, it's not a Lightroom or a Capture One training here. I'm not really going through all the features. I don't, maybe I use features without explaining the features. If you really have a question, just ask. Let's see what you can do. So then the 5 most important points to consider when taking a photograph. There are things you cannot, or it's very hard to change. Now with AI, it's maybe getting easier to change, but composition. So if something is not on the image, you want to have on the image, it's hard to get it into the image later on. If something is in the way, like there is a trash can in front of someone, it's hard to remove. Well, I know it's possible, but I'm talking about, it's a lot of work to do it in the right way. So composition, just make sure that you have the right composition when you really shoot the image. Better shoot twice, maybe to shoot it from a different angle, and go in a crouching position, stand on something that you are higher than something. Just make sure that you have everything on the image you really like to have on the image, and check it before you walk away, especially if you do this in a street situation. Lighting as well. However, lighting is not as crucial as it used to be, especially if you start working with RAW. However, I will go into more detail about lighting in the next slides. Then focus and sharpness. Again, focus and sharpness is really difficult to fix afterwards. In some extent, it's possible, but really, really limited. And it's a lot of work. I hear again with AI, it's getting better and better, but nevertheless, I really recommend that you have the focus and sharpness already in cam. And why sharpness is important, or how you can ensure this, I will have this in the next slide as well. And exposure as well. However, this is easier to fix afterwards. And subject and story, of course, if not the right things are on the image, then it's hard to really make the story later. So coming to sharpness, and this is actually my mental rule, how I change or how I set up my camera. So first of all, the part with the f-stop or aperture. So how much of the image I would like to have sharp. So do I have a depth of field of depth? How sharp I want to have everything. So the blurry background or not a blurry background. So this is important at the beginning because this is hard to change afterwards. Then the best image is not a good image, in my point of view, if it is not sharp. Okay. Or if you have, you know, a shaky image because the shutter time was too slow or something like this. And ISO, I know a lot of people talk a lot about ISO, so about getting grains in the images and you should prevent it and so on and so forth. However, I say this is my priority. First, have the blurriness of the background, or how much do you want to have sharp in the image, so the aperture. Then make sure that the shutter speed is fast enough that you don't have shakes, camera shakes, or any blurriness about movements in the camera. Or if you photograph something very fast, then shutter speed is priority. And ISO is for myself, really something I use to compensate. And here in the white box as well, I mean, the noise reduction possibilities in the software you have today is amazing. So I would recommend not to care too much about ISO. 3200 ISO is for me fine, especially if you post it later on an iPhone or on a tablet, you won't see the ISO. So again, make sure there's sharpness, the aperture is the right point, the shutter speed is correct, and then if the image is too dark or too bright, which is most unlikely, then compensate with ISO. Now coming to the recommendations. As I mentioned so a couple slides before, the better the input into post-processing, the better the output. So again, here a discussion I have quite often, should I shoot in JPEG, should I shoot in RAW? I know there are a lot of live streamers around or people on YouTube, wherever, they say it's not necessary anymore to shoot in RAW. I have a completely different opinion to that because I tried this as well and I regretted it heavily afterwards. So just if you looked at the histogram on the right-hand side, I mean, if you have very harsh ends, darkness on this and very brights on this, then it's easier really to recover if you shoot in RAW. However, I'll come to that a little bit later again. So then use lossless compression. So in your camera, quite often you have a chance to say no compression, lossless compression, or compression with loss, or the compression with loss. So really, either you don't compress the image or use lossless compression, so you don't lose any data. Always full resolution, so get as many pixels as you can, and prevent blown out or underexposed images. So when you look at the screen of your camera, you can have an histogram. So try not to have a histogram that looks like that. So a lot of blacks, a lot of highlights, and nothing between. Usually a histogram should be the opposite, nothing or almost nothing in the completely black on the left-hand side, and not as much as possible here on the right-hand side, which is the white. So white means blown out. This is 100% white, so you cannot really, there's no way you can recover it. And 100% black, there's no way you can recover it later on. The algorithm in these tools are amazing nowadays. However, black is black and white is white. If there's nothing else, you cannot recover. So when you shoot, and this is what I mentioned before with shutter speed and all these things, try to configure your camera in a way that you have not too much here and not too much here on the right-hand side. Then I also recommend to shoot wider as needed. You can always crop the image. Don't be afraid about that. I know a lot of people say cropping is, well, whatever it is. I say cropping is just a tool. Use it. I will later on show how you can use cropping. I usually try to shoot wider as necessary. It gives me some freedom in the afterwork, in the post-processing. And especially if you have a tilted shot, maybe it's not really steady. If you have, the lake is going like this or the house is going like that, If you have more, if you want to straighten this up, then you will lose on the right and left-hand side, or even on the bottom or the top, and then you might lose valuable image content. So please use wider, you can always crop. And yes, subjects should be in the focus, hard to fix this later. Now coming to some examples when you talk about JPEG versus RAW. This is the same image, once shot in a JPEG and then once shot or saved as a JPEG and shot and saved as a RAW. Here you can easily see that here on the left-hand side in the JPEG, this area here is completely blown out. There's no structure, no information anymore. And if you see here on the RAW, there's still, you see the clouds, you see even here more at the rims of these trees, and here is only a little thing that is white. The rest is really still available and can be processed in post-processing. So this you might think, oh, that's not a big deal. However, really bright spots in an image are often distracting because your eye is often just going to the brightest spot in the image, and this could be very annoying later on. Then you go to Photoshop and then, well, yeah, then it really starts to be complicated. How does this look in the in the histogram? And here it's very obvious. You see, this is a standard resolution and this is HDR. So the ones people have HDR screens, they can see this as well. And the ones that have only standard screens see only up to here. However, you see the harsh drop off here with JPEG. There's nothing, it's a flat straight line here. And if you go here to do the RAW on the right-hand side, you see at the same point, it's the same curve up to here, but then there's no drop off. We even have on the very end here, still a little peak with blown out. And this is this little white stuff here, which is really peaking up here. So much more information. And when we talk about post-processing, we like to have as many information as we can, because information is something we can work with. Any questions so far? Okay.
Don't forget that if you have questions, you can always write them on the chat and I will get them to Daniel or answer you guys if I can.
Yep, thanks. So this is my workflow after shooting. And again, it's my personal workflow. This is does not need to be good for anybody else. It's just how it works for me. I have to admit that we come often back with quite a lot of images. In the past, we used to shoot concerts. And when you come home at 2 o'clock in the night after a concert, you have maybe 1,000 or 2,000 pictures on your stick or your memory card. And you have to deliver them within, I don't know, a couple of hours, at the latest 11 o'clock in the morning to the agencies. So at this time, when we did this for a whole year, at this time, I developed for myself a system which makes me fast, but this is personal for me. So I import the file, the raw files, I rename them. So here it's really important to rename them. I usually have a running number in the front. So I start with 000, and then I just increment it. Then I have the event name, the shooting name. Then I have the camera, the name of the shooter, because we are 2, and then the logo from us. So it's photocharner.ch. So this is actually the name. And after I've done this, the images are identifiable for a certain event and for a certain shooting. Then I have the culling. So the culling here, so this is actually when I really go very fast through it. So 1 star. This is more like gut feeling. You just go in, is it sharp? Is it the right people on it? Does it, well, just do I like it? Is it not unsharp or terrible, wrong, whatever? So I just give a star. And this is going pretty fast, just going through all the 100, 200, 300, or even more images. The idea here is to select out the ones that are really not good. And I don't do anything with the images. I just giving a star. Then just 2 stars. With 2 stars, I actually take care more about the content. Is it an image I like to keep? This takes a little bit more time. Sometimes, especially when we shot for concerts, I gave myself a maximum number of shots I wanted to keep. So I say, I don't need more than 30 shots. If we do a model shooting or something like this, I often say I don't need more than 10 images. However, what do you do with 40, 50, 60 images? So if I have, after 2 stars, the run through with 2 stars, still a lot of images, I might go again and again and again, so that I can really select them down to an amount I want to keep. Of course, later on, you can still change your mind. So at this point, I set the filter to 2 stars plus. So why 2 stars plus? I mean, sometimes you come to an image you really like, so I give them right away 3 stars. So this is why I'm saying 2 stars plus. So this prevents me from seeing the rest, because as long as you see the rest, you always, oh, well, for me, I always think, oh, this is a nice one as well, so maybe, and then I just lose a lot of time. After down selecting, I have then the list of images, and I have a feeling, or I see what kind of images I have at this point. Do I have a lot of people? Do I have a lot of lights? Do I have a lot of streets, cars, landscape, trees, animals, and so on, maybe the sea or lakes or whatever. So at this point, I try to get for myself a development idea. What kind of mood, what kind of color scheme should the images have? I mean, maybe I'm going for black and white, and I'm going for colorful. I'm going for a maybe Blade Runner like movie styles or whatever, very warm or very old shots. So this is what I'm deciding here. I can always change the decision, but this helps me as well to do the next steps. Here is consistency is coming in place as well. So especially when I'm editing a batch of images, I like to have the whole batch with the same kind of mood and image style. So this is why this developing idea is coming very early. As next, I'm going to test. I mean, the best idea needs to be tested. Sometimes you take the images, you try this, what I say, like a Blade Runner style, cinematic style, and it just does not work out. Maybe because the colors were not good, you had too much orange in it, or it's too dark or too bright, especially this kind of images. If you city images, most of them need to be in a low light situation to look nice if you go for Blade Runner looks. So then I'm testing this here, and I'm testing this with a couple of images. And if I like the look, if I think this is it, then I think about efficiency. Efficiency comes with presets. So in many softwares like Lightroom with Command C or Control C, or in Capture One, I can show this later on, you can kind of copy a set of changes, a set of parameters, and then you can paste these parameters to the next image. So this is how I'm very fast. So in this way, I can easily work a couple of images, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 images in a very fast time. After that,
Daniel, just a second. Before you start the next module on your workflow, we have a question here from Lakshman, and it's about culling, and asking where do you prefer to do the culling, Lightroom or any other software?
As the star system works in both Lightroom or Capture One, actually, I don't mind. The difference is where the images are coming from. So when we shoot, when we go for vacation, or when we shoot in an event, I sometimes like to use Lightroom, because Lightroom is better integrated with the whole cloud thing. So I can upload all the files during the way back on my iPad. In the iPad, they are distributed into the cloud. Coming back home, I can start working again on the computer. Or if Anna Rosa works with the same files, then she can really in parallel work with the whole thing. It's more like who does work together with the files and how do we process the files through our workflow. On Capture One, this is not yet possible. I'm a beta tester, a pilot tester now for the same functionality on Capture One. They're bringing this next year so that you have this cloud integration in Capture One as well. So you can upload them on your iPad and then start working on the computer and going back and forth. So it's not about the tool. It's more like I need to have this fast possibility to make 1, 2, 3, and 4 stars. And this is possible in Lightroom and Capture One. I don't use any other software.
I was about to ask you if you ever tried something like, I think it's photo mechanics, that it can do a bit of automatic initial culling. I never tried that one. It just goes and finds whatever is out of focus or has problems, and then it rejects those photos automatically. But I don't know if I ever tried it.
No, I didn't. I have in Capture One, I don't know if this is possible in Lightroom as well. In Capture One, I can enable that it marks files which are not sharp, or it shows me the sharp part of an image with colors. However, this is for me very distractive, and the content often is a bit more important. So if an image is maybe not super sharp, but the content is very good and I like it, and it fits to the story, I might keep it as well, even though it's not super sharp. So I really just switch all these tools off, and I'm just go through by my heart or my gut feeling. Yeah, that's just how I'm working. Yeah,
it's exactly the reason I don't want this kind of automatic doing, because sometimes you have an almost amazing image that has a little bit of something that the software would consider imperfection, but that's not really my thing also.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends as really on where you later on post. If you post it on Instagram, I mean, you can have a lot of unsharpness and you still don't see it. I mean, this is really not the thing. Good, thanks for the question. I don't know, maybe this was not the answer you're looking for, but the system is actually independent of the product. I guess the star system works on the most products. So then coming to the development part here, so applying the preset, then I start doing the basic light and color stuff, fine-tuning and exporting JPEG in RGB 80% and 4048 pics. Why 4084 pics? Because this is enough to print it on A2. So with this basic export, I can easily send the images to everybody, and they can then use them on A2 without coming back to me to asking for higher quality. So every file that has been exported or went to this fine-tuning and, well, succeeded fine-tuning, quite often I start fine-tuning and say, oh no, it's not working. And at the end, I have very similar files, so I drop one. I don't upgrade it to 3 stars. But then if this process here is done, then I upgrade it to 3 stars, and the 3 stars actually are the images I consider as more or less final. Then it depends, it's really here on the developing idea. I show you this later on this little presentation. I do have some software additions like Nik Collection, Photoshop, etc., which I really use for a specific look. Especially Nik Collection with analog effects. I really like to have this analog kind of thing of images. And if I consider to do it, then I'm doing this here. Not talking about content management. I don't change any content in this workflow. If I would change content, the workflow is different. The change of the content happens here between this box and this box. Yeah. And final post, publishing, printing, sent to the model client, 5 stars. So I know all the images with 5 stars have been sent to the customer. However, I do as well a separate folder for that. So I can really always figure out what left my computer to the outside world. Questions so far? Good. So now coming to the post-production. The most powerful tool you have in post-production is cropping. It sounds very easy and strange, but this is really powerful. We often sit, when I say we, Andreas and myself, often on a computer, and we crop for 5 minutes. Like we crop it here, we crop it like this, wide, high, in a square, and then suddenly you have this wow moment when you say, wow, that's it. And don't miss this. Really use cropping like hell. I'm sorry, really don't hesitate. Crop, because it's computer, you can always undo it, but don't miss the powerful cropping tool. And not an image with a lot of information is not always the best image. If in this example here, on the left-hand side, this is Thunersee. In the morning, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, something. You see, we have a lot of these autumn trees, then we have here a ship in the background, then this house here, this little beautiful high house, and here a duck sitting on a stone. So, well, whatever reasons that I should like this, but if the duck would be the most important thing on the image and I want to show this to people, this would be very hard for the people to understand if I show them the image like this. So I would crop it down to something like that. You see here in the right-hand spot from the magic lines. Then if I want to show the people this clubhouse sitting here on the shore of the Thunersee, surrounded with this very nice autumn trees, then I would not send this image because they would look at the duck or maybe at this tree on the right-hand side, which is very prominent. So I would crop it like this. And on the right-hand side, it's yet another crop showing the clubhouse and the duck here on the, so something is like a landscape shot with something in the foreground and something in the background and this nice reflections on the sea, on the lake. So this is just an image just to show you, it's really depending what you want to show. And please always consider, what do you want to show? Do you want to show the scenery? Then take this. If you want to show the clubhouse out of any reason, then show it like this. Or if you have more a story like this, with this beautiful image here. Another shot here. So we shot this, I shot this here in Ettenhausen in Thurgau. In the evening, the sun was just setting here below this little hill. And this is the image actually after post-processing with full resolution. So, and now you can say, okay, that's fine. However, these white flowers down here might be considered as distracting. And here again, what do I want to show to the viewer of this image? Do I want to show him the grass and this wild flowers with other flowers than this mown here? Then this might be fine. If I just want to focus on the sunset, which is really highlighting here this flower from the background, then this might be a good one. Or if I want to focus only on this flower, then this in a landscape format would be more appropriate. So here as well, it's really depending what is the message of this image, and decide on the message, and don't be afraid of cutting. I know sometimes cutting is very hard. You have such a beautiful sunset here, just hovering over the rim of this little hill, and it looks so nice, and maybe you worked for 2 hours and waiting here, and it's hard to crop it out. But if the message is the flower, well, then crop it out or keep both. Why not? This is something I do very often. I keep the same images in various cropping states. And this is much, much easier with Capture One, by the way. Questions to cropping? Good. So coming to post-processing, talking about colors. Here we have this on the left-hand side, we have actually the out of cam. And on the right-hand side is the final image. You have seen, I pushed it pretty hard. Some people say it's too much, but well, this is taste. And what I have seen on the right hand, on the original image, I have seen this colors of green and orange in the trees. And I wanted to enhance them or make them more viewable or more presentable in the whole image. And something else, I did color grading, and some of the people who know me, I know that I really love color grading. So you see this bluish touch, this comes from color grading. So this is kind of bluish in the highlights and the yellows and the oranges in the dark. So how do you do this? So I'm going, see, this is now in Capture One. So I'm really now going over to Capture One. And I have here this image. And so what you see here is that, no, that was the wrong one. So in Capture One, the tools are on the left-hand side. And here you see it's this, I think it's a little bit dull. So they have this folk, so this monstrous softbox highlighting everything in a very soft light. So I said, okay, I want to have this a little bit more pushy. So I did the exposure. I just lifted the exposure maybe a bit, then the brightness as well. And this is something I'm doing back and forth. I'm just going up with the brightness. I'm talking about this part here of the histogram, and then maybe pushing this back again. So let's see what's happening. It's often a playing around. It's no editing is coming just straight in one shot. Now, if I want to do color grading, I need to do this right at the beginning. So what does this mean? I need to go and select a linear response curve. So this means I don't want to have any algorithm from Fuji interfering with my image manipulation. Then I do have here my favorite, this is teal and orange. So this is teal and orange, and this is my favorite way to color grade. You see all these color grades, and these are let's lookup tables. So these are not filters, they just change it in a subtle way. So I'm just gonna look what I have used here. So I used the Moscati. So I'm just gonna get this here. And you see how the image is changing. If I hover over it, it gets this bluish touch. And this is something I need to do always at the beginning, because you have seen now it's much darker than before. And now I can go back here. And you see already, I have now, with adding a LUT, a LUT from color grading, I have already punched the oranges and the highlights in the darkness, or the middles in the orange, and the highlights into the blues. So then it comes as next, I go and lift the shadows. I'm just trying what happens. And you see this is working very nicely here now, this coming up. It's a bit too much here. So, and I'm missing a little bit the contrast. And so I'm gonna push the contrast. Whoa, it's super slow here with Zoom running in the back end. So I'm just pushing the contrasts as well. And maybe as well to get the blacks a little bit down here. So, and I maybe resume. So the clouds there are some structure in the cloud. So let's see what I can get out of the structure. So I just take the highlights down in the HDR panel. Then I usually in landscape, I add 20 of clarity and about 20 in structure. And just not to forget a little vignette to the whole thing. So you see now it's going, I just press Option B on Capture One. So we see this is the before and this is the after. So it is already a little punchier than before. I still think it's too dark in the darks. So let's see what happens if I just move the shadow a little bit more to the right-hand side. And you see this is coming up very nicely and influencing only the dark area in this image. So I can go a little bit dehazing as well here. And this is actually where I like to have it. So the point is, what here at this point, I have two issues. This is still a little bit dull here, the trees, and this ship here is very bright. So what I'm going now to the painting, and this is something I really like with Capture One. I have these paints. Now I'm going to add contrast with my painter in this area here. So you see this, they are going a little bit more dark and nicer. So, and what Capture One does, as soon as I start painting, it creates a separate layer called Contrast Plus. So I can easily switch it on and switch it off. Then I might add a little bit brightness as well. So I'm going to dodge this area here as well. Let's see what happens. I can always switch it off. Then I go and add a little bit more contrast. So this is like painting here now. So it's going and trying what I do with my idea. So and I mentioned the ship. So the ship is very bright here. So let's see what I can do here. So I'm just zoom in to the ship. And I'll go on to recover the highlights. Let's see if this is working or not. Maybe there's not enough highlights here. So to see, nope, it's not really working well. So I'm going to get the brightness. Wow, it's super slow. Maybe this is to do with, has to do with Zoom running in the backend. So I made it to the brightness. And let's see what happens here. So yes, oh, that was the wrong one. So that should be brightness minus, not plus. So it's easy. I can just remove this layer here and go to the minus and darken this down a bit. Now you see it's going to be darker. It's just far away, but nevertheless. So this is now really not anymore. So now this area here looks a little bit dark for me. So I can just shadow recover, take the arrow as well, and just paint a little bit over this area here, just to recover the darkness in this part. So this is to see how it works, how this is working. So I really start to paint and to take, take my work. I start working on the details of an image. So when we now look back and forth, so this was the final or the out of cam shot, and this is now the final image. You see, the blueness of the one in PowerPoint is much harder. So I did maybe, I don't know, I did maybe some color grading, manual color grading here in the brightness as well, but I'm not doing so. I'm usually, sometimes I use them as well. Good. So I would say this is for this demonstration enough. So any questions just now? So this is now the before and the after. Yeah, I have a note for me, white balance. People ask about white balance. I personally don't care, as I do color grade anyway, and I do not work for advertisement agencies, so colors are just as I like them. I don't really care about the correctness of color. It just needs to fulfill the idea I want to present. So this is the way I have done this with this image. Now, moving over to Lightroom. Here is a shot we have done in South Korea on Jeju Island. This was really sunset, late afternoon, so it was 7 o'clock something. And I did not have a lot of time, so I just ran out. I had the Fuji XS10 camera, so that's a small one. And you see here the number. So I did an ISO 320 with f8 to get some depth. And the speed was actually done by the camera as I used the aperture mode to shoot. RAW, of course, and you know, see the histogram. So the histogram is pretty black. So it's against what I just told you guys before. However, I was aware about this very bright spot, and I knew that I have to dial down the camera as much as I can, because if I get this burned out too much, then I cannot use the image or I cannot do post-processing. And I know from experience that blacks look often very black, but they aren't, because you are working on RAW. So as long as I have here a peak and it's not flat on the left-hand side, as long as there's something here, this means data. This here is data I can work with, and I can push easily this data to the right-hand side. And this is now the final image. You see the peak is completely gone here, and I pushed it over here, and I did some changes on the middle part as well. So then you have to decide blown out brightness or dark, dark, go for dark, dark, because dark, dark in RAW often has still some images, some information, and the tools like Lightroom or Capture One or all DxO, whatever, they can recover quite a lot of information out of the dark areas. So then I'm going to Lightroom. By the way, I only work with Lightroom CC. It has more or less all the features I need. Printing is not included. However, I print with Capture One. And Lightroom CC has more and more information, more and more tools. And since a couple of weeks, we have also local, so I can have files local and I don't need to store everything in the cloud. However, this is not the goal of this course. So we're just gonna go to an image. This one, and just check that I have the right one. It's in RAW, it's in RAW. So this is the image you have just seen on the PowerPoint. Now, working with this image is always the same. So I did have a color preset for South Korea. So I did one for landscape. I did one for street with you see, when I hover, what happens? And I had one with the street, including more orange manual done. So now I'm just selecting the South Korean landscape color preset. And with this preset, I get more than that. So this is efficiency. So you see, if I open here the effects on the right-hand side, I'm closing the lights, then you see +5, +5, +5, -5. So all this information and in the details, the +67 and the masking with 64 is a part of the preset. So I don't need to change or take care about this anymore. So I know that all the images I have with this applying of this preset do have already the basic textures, clarity, and all the information I usually do on an image as a starting point. But this saves a lot of time. You just run the whole thing through it, and then you can start working straight away. So here we see, first of all, I usually try to figure or make them a little bit straight here. To straighten this up, I have either here, so this mast of the ship here, or I can go for the horizon from the sea, and then I'm going here. So what's next? I did already add the color grading, so then I'm going to go for the lights. I just remove the highlights, then I see what happens. Oh, nice. So I get all the structures back here. This is due to the raw information. That's really, I'm losing really almost nothing here. And now I'm very curious what I get back from this very dark places. So I just pulling up the shadow heavily as much as I maybe even can. And I see it's really nice. We have a lot of information in this image still available. We can push it very, very high. I have the black as well. However, I need to say that the lever black is really completely different in between Lightroom and Capture One. The same is for contrast. These two levers are working very differently from each program. So then here I'm going to go maybe play a little bit with the contrast. A lot of the thing is playing around, seeing what's happening. So I'm just going to add a little bit less contrast. Then I'm just going up with exposure, maybe a bit, and as well with the white here. And then we don't have the exposure and the brightness as we have it in Capture One. So this is what I can do here. Now, I still have this area pretty dark, and I'm just like to go a little bit back with this because I think it's really mushy here then. So Now I'm gonna go and add a mask. And you know, there are these artificial masks. You can subject, sky, background, and so on and so forth. I almost never use it. Landscape, my favorite is the radial mask. Why? Because it's easy, quick, well, maybe even easy, quick, and a little bit dirty as well. So I just use the thing, I go over here, say, okay, just give them a little bit more out of the shadow, then a little bit exposure maybe. Let's see how this works. Yeah, it's coming up, then a little bit contrast to make it a little more. So get this fog out, and maybe I'm gonna go for a little bit dehaze here as well. Let's see how this works. Yeah, it gives me a bit more. So dehaze often gives a bit more and better contrast than contrast. Well, that's just, but you have to, yeah, well, you have to just to try it. So see here, this is now, we have this wall here. Then we have a lot of dark here. So I just do another mask here in this area. And again, in this kind of holiday images, I'm really going often with the radial. So it's very easy, quick. And so just going up a little bit here with the shadows as well. I'm gonna compensate the mushiness with the contrast. Let's see what happens if I go with exposure. So this is enough, maybe a little bit too much already, but if you don't know it, you will not recognize it, I would just say. Now, this edge could be considered as a bit dark as well. Just for playing around, you can still deleting. I'm going for a linear mask here. Just push it up a bit from this area. And let's see what's happening if I just lift up the shadows a bit here. So I have a more even look for the harbor, the water in the harbor. So it's the light is a little bit spread more. So now as we have a sunset, I go back now to the standard and I go to colors and I push the temperature a little bit to the warmth. Because it's sunset, it's nice, yeah. So just a little bit more warmth, and it's not as well as dull. Oh, the rest is more as you like. So you can still add another radial mask here in the middle. So come on, give me this mask. And I mean, this is really playing around, and you can just delete it if you like it or not. It's really. So just go in here, and then add a little bit more of orange, just to give it the sunset, I don't know, maybe postcard look. So this is where we are now. So when we compare this now to the before, so this is the before and this is the after. It's really based on taste, just to give you an idea what you can do, and it's not so much work. Questions so far? You see here, I pushed it even harder with the orange, but yeah, it's depending really on my mood sometimes. Good. Here, coming to the city by, this is Seoul, South Korea as well. This was a night shot done, and I like really this kind of Blade Runner look. So it's again blue and orange, and you see the original shot is well, I don't really like it. I need to say it's shot with 100 ISO. f14 fifth of a second, but no, it's even slower. Why did I use f14 and why? Because this really had an impact on speed, because I wanted the star. So if you go up with the f-stop, you get starlights. So I wanted to have the star. So this is why I moved it there, and I knew that I have enough black information available. So that's why I did not push the ISO. Why as well? Because in the highlights in these offices, these bright windows, if I push it higher, then they are blown out, and I don't like to blow them out because I knew already from experience that with black, I still can work. With blown out things, I cannot work anymore. Okay, so I'm going to Lightroom. Here we go and take the image. So this is this image. Again, standard. So I'm going to go at my preset. So it's the one for street. I guess I'm going to go for the one which I have added an additional blue and orange tone in it. As mentioned before, some of the things are already done. So just so this +5, +5, -5 is all in. They came by preset. So now pushing the things, then pushing the shadows as well up here. So let's see what happens. And you see it's not happening, and there's not much happening. So I'm gonna, because this is I think a weakness of Lightroom in Capture One. This would be would have a very harsh impact, that here in Lightroom it's not really doing a lot. So I just go with the exposure. Then I compensate the highlights in using the highlights down. Okay, my mouse is very slow. Come on, come on, come on. So you see now the blown out areas should be removed more or less. Okay, it's so slow, I cannot move it anymore. So good. Now I still have two issues. The trees are too dark, and this area is too dark for me as well. Of course, I have here some black spots, but really this is in the middle of the screen. So what do I do? Again, my favorite radial gradient filter. I'm just push this over here. Make it kind of turning how the trees are looking. And then let's see how I'm doing this. So here, so let's see what happens if I just, again, now the shadows coming, you see? Suddenly I get the shadows. Going with the exposures, I have to try tree here. Then just to play around, just lift a little bit the light in this area, say, okay, we just add another radial gradient here, just a bit, not too much. Doesn't need to be, but it's just for fun. So let's just push this up a bit. So you see, it's nothing happening a lot with shadows. So it's out of the range. So I go with exposure. I can just bring this up a little bit, make this foreground less dark. Then we have here as well, I could do the same, and here as well. But I'm just looking at the time. So this is something I can say, let's see how this is back. So this is the out of cam, and this is now the final image. If just in case you push it even harder, this spot might get very high, very bright. You can have a radial gradient here as well to just lower the brightness. This would be nice to higher the brightness here. So, okay, this is an image I can easily play around for a couple of minutes or even 10, 20 minutes, just to see what I can do and then change the image really in different ways. Questions to this image? Yeah, here you see, I push the brightness much, much more. So it's really depending on the moment and the mood I'm in as well.
And how much sharing it on Zoom messes up with your processor, the graphics cards, and the time it needs to do anything, right?
Yeah, it's really lagging behind, so this is kind of tricky to manage it. But however, so here we have another image shot at the same place. You see the same light here, but with this wonderful building, and this on the left-hand side is how it looked like out of cam. On the right-hand side, it looked like after processing. Maybe I'm looking at the time, so actually it's the same process. However, this is much easier as there are no much things to do around. So let me see, I can just reset edits. Then again, adding my preset for this one, having the basic changes done, getting up with exposure, down with highlights, always compensating. Now you see here, as I have this blue and orange color grading in it, the highlights just, it turns a lot of things in blue, but then you can just push up again the highlights, so, the exposure. Compensating a little bit, see what happens with contrast, always play around. It's sometimes amazing what happens. Changing, so just lift a bit the shadows, the whites down for the brightness in the windows, and we are almost already there. So this was not really a too hard one. So before and after. Here again, while I shot, I was really concerned about blowing out the windows. I knew that I can get back the rest. So then going back, so here, okay. Now this is an interesting one. So this was a shooting with Anastasia on the Sexy Lüterplatz. And the idea was really having, she has a lot of this old-fashioned clothing and 60s clothing, and we wanted to shoot with her in this ground with all these wagons and all this I don't know, play with the large wheel and everything. So I actually had my lights with me at this point because I knew we will shoot out in the harsh shadow and the harsh sun. So the plan was actually to compensate the shadows with artificial light, so with the flashes. However, as you see, there were a lot of traffic, a lot of people, kids are running around, and we were moving, and she was moving as well. So at this point, I decided not to use artificial lights. We had some concerns, especially Anastasia, about the shadows in her eyes. Because as you see here, out of cam, it looks not very appealing. Then the histogram, but then when I looked at the histogram, for me, the histogram was fine. I hadn't anything really blown out, and I hadn't everything really, really on the left-hand side. So now with this shot and looking at the histogram, I knew at this point that I have every data in a range where I can manage it. So with this, I was confident enough to make the whole shooting with her without any additional lights. The ISO settings were ISO 100, 340th of a second, and f2. F2 especially because I don't want to have the people recognizable in the background. Then you see in Capture One, I pushed it that far, and then I added this look as well. So I'm going now to Capture One, having Anastasia. So this is the image you just have seen on the PowerPoint. And yes, it needs to be sharp. If this is not sharp, it's really not fun. So it's really hard to make it better afterwards. So what I did, so I went over and pushed, especially I just test, it's always testing a bit. So, and I should not forget to, I need, what did I take? I need just to see which color grading I used. It was Merak, okay. So again, when you go here, you see this, the ICC profile is Fuji, and the curve is actually on auto. So this means I don't have a control how the engine of Capture One is developing this image. So you see there are different curves available, and they do always something. They override a lot of things I don't like to. So I go for linear. Linear means actually the algorithm based on the ICC profile doesn't do anything. So you see it gets darker. And then I go and I take the color grading. It's again teal and orange, which is my favorite. So this is not color grading is done, so I can really start working on the image. Pushing up exposure, let's see what happens, how far I can go. Okay, so here there's a difference. I do have brightness as well. So brightness is more in the middle and exposure is the whole image. So I always try to get what's better. So often the brightness is better because it focuses on the middle part of the histogram, as far as I understood. I'm not a profi in this one. Then I'm gonna go to the HDR part. So I'm just, you see now, if you look at her skirt here, there's some really white places, and here as well, and on the gloves here. So I just push this down here, and you see how, especially in this area, structure is coming back. So push it down here as well. And now we have always this thing with the main concern, as I mentioned in the beginning, was actually the shadows on her face. And as I see, there's nothing on the left-hand side. So I'm very confident I can do a lot here. So I'm just gonna push the shadows to the right-hand side and see what happens. Whoa, it's fantastic. So the shadows are almost gone here. So it's really no concern anymore if you look at the whole thing. So it's now very bright. So I'm just going to go and push back the exposure to compensate the brightness, because the exposure is going on everything, maybe even a little bit on the brightness. So this is always a little bit playing back and forth. Okay, so the mouse is stuck. Okay, this was not by intention. So now it's really hard. So I say, okay, to soften the whole thing, I'm gonna go down here with the contrast again. So you see it's really softening more. Then I'm gonna go with the clarity. Clarity, I say here, I go for, usually I'm at minus 20 and the plus 20 in the structure. And then add a vignette, a little one here. So just a soft little vignette at the end. So now I'm still think it's very harsh. So I'm gonna add a whole new layer here just for clarity. So I say clarity minus 50 so that I can play. So I'm gonna here with the minus 50 on clarity. And now, as this is a very nice feature of Capture One, you can have your edits on layers and I usually name them so I know what's happening. So if I can, so it's really softening these hard edges here in her face. And I really like this much, much better. So what else? Maybe we can go a little bit dehaze. Let's see what's here. Does not change a lot. So, okay. So where are we now when we go back? So, okay, so we are pretty there. Now, this could be the final image. If you want to go for this soft look, I mean, this was the idea with her dress and everything else. And if I like to have now this old-fashioned style, for this is the Nick collection. And in the Nick collection, I use very often the analog FX Pro 2. So then I export, and I export always in Adobe RGB. 300 resolution, TIFF, uncompressed, doesn't really matter a lot, I figured. And it's 50%, and this 50% is only because I'm this has been shot with the JVX100F, so we have a 100 gig file, mega file, so it's really big. So I'm just gonna go for 50%, which is enough for most things. I'm gonna use the image later on. So now it really exported the file into a TIFF file. It means that I cannot change the file. If all the changes I do from now on are lost when I change colors or whatever. And so here it's actually my favorite is the classic camera 6, which is not the one you see right now. It's just loading. It's loading. Well, here we are. So this is, so then I just use the dirt and scratches. I make the vignette less. So just remove the vignette a bit. And well, that's then the final image. So this is now this image. I cannot see it. which one? Can I remove this thing from? So it's this one here. So this is a TIFF file you see here, and it came from here to here. So any questions so far? Here, the tricky part is you cannot go back. So if you figure that you did that, or if I figure that I did something wrong here, I just want to have it differently, then I have to go to the Nick collection again. Well, I could actually change the TIFF file, but then I lose the capability of later on managing all this stuff here. So this is something, well, yeah, it's just something you should know. The same is with Capture One. With Lightroom. The whole thing, the whole workflow works the same in Lightroom. You get a separate file and you cannot go back. Good. So it's 11 past. What is left? So yeah, this is this one. Okay, and this is a studio scene shooting we have done in our studio, and you see on the left-hand side, again, the out-of-cam shot, and on the right-hand side, the other one. So this is then again done in Capture One. Yeah, so this is this one here. Same story again. So I'm just gonna go for not having any algorithm of doing something for me. I'm just switching this off here. Then I'll go for a color grading. I just look at my notes. It's Mintaka I used here. So this is this one. And then I'll start editing. Now, the point here is I could add as well, just checking what's here. So I can add as well a built-in sharpness. So I'm sharpness 2. And you see, this is the nice thing on Capture One. You have everything on layers and you can switch them off and on. So, and then I'm deciding to do now here an HDR change in the image. So I'm just making an HDR layer, naming them as HDR, doing here some stuff in it. So pushing the darkness, maybe pushing down the lightness here. Then let's see what's happening. Yeah, so you see here, this very dark areas, I'm just pushing them up. And in studio shoots, I often, I call it for myself, I don't know if this is the right term, I normalize an image. I try to have an even look in an image so that I can later on do work with with a painting. So you see what I mean later on. So I just get everything seeable. So I see a lot of things here as well. Then I maybe, I don't know if I should push them a little bit more down here, maybe not that much here. So then what I don't like is this orange here. So let's see what I can do. So I add a layer color, remove orange. And I usually name the layers so that I later on can follow or just know what I have done, like in cases like today, so I can really go and see what I have done. So now I picked the orange here and I just start to desaturate it a little bit here in this area, and you see the orange is going away. And as it is a layer, I can switch it on and switch it off. Let's see how this works. Good. So this image is now very flat. I kind of normalized it, as I call it. So I will add now a standard vignette, which is not doing a lot, maybe even crop it a bit here on the right-hand side. So because it's not so nice. And, you know, up to the skull here on this side, maybe even more, because the important part is actually she in the middle here. So then I'll go to the background, remove the brightness a bit, and here I add now a radial mask. I love radial masks. They are so versatile. Come on. Okay. So yes. Now here you have more, there's more flexibility. As in Lightroom, I can make the center, come on. Okay, my CPU is not really, so I can make it like this and just turn it a bit. This is not possible in Lightroom. Not in this way, at least. There are other things you can do. There's no AI masking in Capture One. Just to, come on. Well, what's doing it? So now I'm really doing, you know, I'm just darkening the scene around her heavily because she's in spotlight here. So now here's a trick I very often use. So if you darken, you know, it's very dark and I just want to have the highlight in her, but I don't want to kind of lose the whole scenery. So I push it really hard down, but then I pick up the blacks in this mask just to give the background more structure. So you see, it's still the brightness in the middle, but then with now this black lifting here, it's not really black. So you still see the whole image. So this is what I do quite often. I really focus it with the brightness in the middle and then lift the black in the vignette. This is why I do it manually and not with the vignetting tool, because you cannot do this in the vignetting tool. Now we have these areas very black and here skin as well. So let's see what we can do and just add this radial out dark so that I know what this layer does. And now I'm going to my painting part, and which is maybe with the CPU overload a bit difficult. So again, I'm gonna go as, so this is the same tools. The change of the painting tool is the same as in Photoshop. So with Control Option right and left, you make the size, and Control Option up and down, you make the hardness. So it's very convenient. That's even better than Lightroom. In Lightroom, it's different. So I'm just gonna recover here the darkness. You see now the brightness is coming up on this area because I want to have this book and this leaves here and the skull maybe here as well a little bit, and these areas here highlighted. Then I'm gonna go with dodging. Where's dodging? So here again a bit. Now see, now it's really something happens. Oh, it's just very slow. So yeah, Zoom really uses a lot of capacity. Come on, so okay, it's too slow. I cannot work. So, but this, I mean, you get the idea. And this is how it works. So actually, when I now go to the image I showed you, so this is the final image, and you see here all the layers. So it was color grading, HDR, clarity, the radial out, dodge brightening, and shadows recovering. And this actually, with this, it came to this image. So good. I'm looking at the time. I guess we pretty far, it's 20 past. So maybe I would like to open, I mean, this is the same. So it's again, out of cam and then color grading and adding lights on it. I actually would like to come to the discussion or question answer if there are any.
So in the chat, there is no question pending, but if anybody wants to jump in and ask something or say whatever about your own process, it should be an open forum. On my side, I like a lot when you use both software, so I can see a bit more of the other side of the fence, because I use mainly Lightroom. And it was quite nice to see even the Lightroom CC, which I never use, and to see how much it improved since the last time I used it, because it was like a tiny app, and now it's like the full thing. So you already got me to try something new for sure. And also the nick effects. It's been a while since I've used it. I didn't even know it were still after Google bought them, and it was quite a mess, that they still work so well. So thanks for sharing those.
This just a question. I always heard that Lightroom does not handle very well Fujifilm RAW files, so the RAW files only capture one. Is that true or not?
Well, it's very harsh, but yes, that's a big difference. So I didn't want to go into the details. So Fuji has another system on their sensor. So the points who receives green, red, and blue, I guess,
Yeah,
they are differently ordered on the Fuji sensor. Normally, they're just they just follow each other's, and in Fuji has another way. And yes, so especially when you have blownouts, then you see a big difference. So Capture One is much better handling Fuji files if you are in the border of the image, like really blown or dark. If you are in the middle of the histogram, no big difference.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
And there's as well this one here, Luminar Neo. Luminar Neo is especially good with Fuji files as well. It's as good as Capture One.
It was called Luminar?
It's this one, Luminar Neo.
Neo, okay, Luminar Neo, okay.
Yeah, but this is really lacking on Lightroom. They are not as good, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel.
Lightroom improved enormous. I mean, if you go really to this colors place here, so now they have this whatever is not so okay, this okay. They have another color mixer. They have the point colors, which is kind of new, and they have the color grading. I mean, this was here. So I did some color grading as well manually here. Yeah. This was not existing for for a long time. This is, I don't know. I'm not good in versions, but this is, let's say, a year or something. And since they have it here as well, this was only Capture One. In Capture One, you have it here under this here. I still like the color editing tool much better, because here I think you have more control. It's just easier to, so you say, okay, I want to have this part here. You can just widen the range, shorten the impact part, or make it more soft. This is as well possible here with the point colors as well. If you go here, something on point, but then you have these levers, and I just think maybe you can do it even better. I don't know, but for me, I know it's the same here. So this is much more easier for me to manage, and which is really unique to Capture One is skin tone. So you can pick a skin tone, and then you say uniform hue, saturation, and lightness, and then this will go on the color range of your picked. And then I can just go back a little bit here, and this is quick way to smoothen out skin tone. It's not skin editing. But thanks for the question, Antonio.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for clarifying. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, the main reason why Capture One is not cheap. I mean, it costs me, I don't know, $180 a year or something, in addition to Adobe. So, the software costs is not to underestimate. However, what I need to say is the camera capture in the studio, we shoot the camera plugged into the computer, so tethered shooting. And tethered shooting is just factors faster in Capture One than in Lightroom. That's just a fact. And this is really, if you have a model sitting in a strange pose on a chair, which lead, then you have to wait until the image is dropping into the computer. This is different now. And the layers, you don't have layers in Torres layers. Any more questions or experience from your side using do you guys use any other software than Lightroom and Capture One, VXO, whatever?
Not for the usual editing as you showed, but some of the other tools like Topaz for sharpness and for removing some digital noise. I do use those a lot. And that's something that we will probably discuss in another chapter. But for editing, basically Lightroom, Photoshop, and I played with many of the other ones, but not really much of them.
Yeah. Just a week ago, a new update came. So lens blur. Now, if you have depth information in your image, you can move the blurriness back and forth in the depth of the image. And you have as well the noise reduction. Is it on as well? You know, you see, I'm not really super noise reduction, denoise now with AI, and I have no other experience. Capture One is very bad in noise reduction, and so Lightroom is much better in noise reduction. And what Lightroom is also much better is in well, it's not doesn't make sense, so I'm just showing you here. You can, you know, take 2 images or 3 images. What I do quite often is I shoot a series of images, then I photo merge them into panorama. And Capture One has the panorama function as well since about a year, but it's really terrible. I don't know why they released it. They do not integrate the lighting. So you see this whole image is coming from 3 other images, and the panorama feature on Lightroom is fantastic. I use this, well, all the time, and you don't really see any, you know, where is it? Oh, no, it's you don't see any, you know, borders from one image to the next. So it's really, should be here. No, it's not. Here, this one is a panorama. So these are 6 images, and you don't see any, you know,
The stitch lines.
Stitch lines, and you see heavily stitch lines in Capture One. It's really, I never would release it with such, you know, it's really, I would say it's faulty. So panorama stuff I always do on Lightroom. Yeah. So I use both. Yeah. This is, any questions? Yeah, on the mark.
So less chances for questions, comments, wishes for something that we should discuss this time or the next one. Please, one at a time. So I'm going to say, give it once, twice, third.
I'm just wondering if this was of any help, because it would be nice to have a little feedback. You know, it's hard to know what you guys know. So this is just from my side.
From my side, yes. I really learned quite a lot right now with Capture One. I didn't was aware that you can use this style so easily. Definitely will look into that.
I bought them separately, these lots, and I could integrate them here as well. So this, you see, these are the same lots as I have in Capture One, and because they are a separate, I just bought them for money for someone else.
Yeah.
So did I understand you correctly? You're not using the AI filters much, the AI masks.
No, never.
Ah, interesting. I use them all the time.
You have seen I use usually radial gradient masks very quickly, and it's hard to say why. There's just usually it's more than I want. I mean, it's subject sky, and if you look at the images I showed, there's no clear subject. I mean, here, for example, so you see these are the masks I'm using. So it's here for the bus. It's here. If it would update, it's here for the umbrella, then here for the highlights up there, and here for the building in the background. And this is not possible with the AI mask.
Yeah, that's true. But for example, for a portrait shooting, I often combine the AI masks with other masks because if you, I don't know if you know this feature, but can you
Yes.
maybe show a portrait photo?
You can add masks here, and you can combine.
Yeah, and you can also intersect. And I quite often use the subject with intersection of a brush.
Absolutely.
For example.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I'm just not used to use it. That's maybe
Okay.
just missing routine might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you, Simon, and I started using them, and they are quite addictive because many times they save a lot of time. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of moments in which you have to do it manually, and I do love the radio gradients that Daniel just explained many times. But yeah, these AI ones, they are really they save a lot of time at sometimes.
Absolutely, really. I agree. Yeah, and sometimes I'm really kind of. I think so. I'm just go away from Capture One. I'm just stay with Lightroom because Lightroom is really getting updates every 4 to 6 weeks. Capture One not. But you know, the tethering shooting, this is so crucial for me. And now they have tethering shooting on the iPad. So I have only my iPad, a cable, and the camera, and I'm out on the field. And this is just fantastic. But yeah. But you're right, Simon. This is I should use more AI masking.
Picture is fantastic, by the way. I like it a lot.
This one, yeah,
in Rome, yeah, I know.
Yeah, I really like because it's really the bus is in moving.
The bus and also the umbrella as well. I like it. Yeah,
so it's a lot of things. So it's the original.
Like the whole thing, to be honest.
Okay, so back to you, Cesar. No more questions.
Yep, there are no questions. There's just one other topic that we will touch in a second. First of all, thanks, Daniel, for enlightening us on Lightroom and Capture One and the way you use it, and also when you explained your workflow, which is very nice to see how each one works. There are so many different takes to it, and we can always learn a lot from the workflow and from the way you edit. And thanks for taking the time to share this all with all of us. Just so everyone knows, I'm going to share some of this material with you guys just after this meeting is over. And I'm also going to share a link for a small feedback. It's 1-2 minutes most, and it would be amazing if you guys could give this feedback. If you don't want to give it right now, which would be also amazing, so that Daniel and I and everyone who's involved in sharing materials with you can know how we're doing, if this is what you guys would like to see, how we could make it better. So it would be great if you could take just a brief moment to fill it out and tell us how it was for you. The point that was brought here in the questions by Lakshman was that would be nice to have a discussion on lighting. And I mean, this is a semester-long topic that we would love to discuss in very, very deep with you all. But for sure, we need to set up a separate meeting specifically for that. And this is pretty much something that we are steering the group a little bit more in this direction. We are going to put some more events, be it in person, going on the field, or to the studio to photograph together, to learn together. And certainly lighting is one very dear subject that we can explore almost endlessly. So certain thing, this is coming. And I don't know if you guys have any other subject, any other ideas that you would like to discuss that to come in mind right now. Okay, so you guys are shy. I will give you guys a chance to add that in the feedback form afterwards. So if you don't have any other considerations, there's a lot of thanking going on for Daniel here in the chat. And I add to that one, thanks again, Daniel, for sharing, for opening a bit of your images and your work for us. Thanks everybody for joining. I hope I can see you all in the next events coming, and especially in person if you can get together and have some fun shooting. I wish you all a great evening and a great start to the week.
Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Joining.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.